Welcome to Trail Manners, the podcast so dedicated to mountain trails and running that they broadcast out of a 78 Volkswagen bus in the mountains. Who does that? Eric and Joel are your hosts and will bring you the trail life as you may have not heard it before. You hear about everything from gear reviews, nutrition to keep you upright and moving forward, and they'll even bring guests into the bus for conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. It's time for some running adventures on a higher elevation. The old 78 Volkswagen bus is fired up and headed to the mountains. Here are your hosts for Trail Manners, proudly representing the 801 with their passion and love for the trails, Eric Manning and Joel Hatch.
Welcome to the Trail Manners Podcast, episode 113. Today we're out on Antelope Island here for the Buffalo Run 25K. So if this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The Trail Manners Podcast is produced every week for enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Trail Manners. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. This episode of the Trail Manners Podcast is sponsored by Health IQ. Health IQ uses science and data to secure lower rates on life insurance for health-conscious people, including runners, cyclists, strength trainers, vegans, and more. That's right, Health IQ rewards us for our lifestyle choices. To see if you qualify, get your free quote today at healthiq.com/trailmanners or mention the promo code trailmanners when you talk to a Health IQ agent. Now let's get to the show. All right, so we've all been there where our best thought-out plans just haven't quite panned out to what we wanted them to look like. And that's kind of what happened with this show today. So as you know, Eric here and Joel, we were out on Antelope Island here for the Buffalo Run 25K. Joel was running the 25K. I came out to do some shows as well as just hang out, support, and volunteer. And what had happened is we ended up talking with the race director and then got roped into volunteering some more. One thing led to another, and so we didn't get everybody we wanted to get on the show this time, so we're just giving you a little preface there. So this episode, we did speak with Jim Skaggs, who was the race director, or is the race director for the Buffalo Run 25K and other races that we'll talk about within the show. But we were out on the island, and we just wanted to say thanks again for all the people that came up and said hello, met us for the first time, blamed us, kind of cheeky, but saying, "Oh, I ran this race because of you guys," and we appreciate that as well. So welcome to the trail world, especially all those that came up and said, "Hey, I just came across you guys not too long ago, like the show." We really appreciate that and keep coming back for more. But instead of just not releasing this show, we thought, we'll let Jim out there have it himself. He's been on the show once before. Great guy, great race director. And I must say, this race went off with no flaws. It was flawless again. Britta, the volunteer coordinator, she nailed it again with all the great volunteers, as well as, of course, Jim and everybody that ran the race. So congratulations there. And so this episode, we're going to be talking with Jim Skaggs about the race itself. There's been a little bit different format this year. Jim is actually coming off a double Achilles surgery just since December, same Achilles, and so he hasn't been running. So, we talked a little bit just more about the race than anything. So hope you enjoy the show. Again, this is just going to be Eric because Joel was running, so bear with me. The solo stuff is a little different. We hope you enjoy the show, and we hope to be back next week with another guest for you and get Joel on. But stay tuned for us for single track session this week. What do we got? 79's coming up, I think. So, 80. Big 8-0. And we all know 8's, just a phenomenal number. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the show where we talk to Jim about his race. All right, welcome to a special edition of the Trail Manners Podcast. Right now, it's just Eric Manning here behind the mic. Joel Hatch is out running a race, and we are on Antelope Island for the Buffalo Run 25K. And our first guest today is the world-renowned, famous race director, Mr. Jim Skaggs. Jim has graciously taken a couple minutes during the first part of this race to sit down with us, so we're going to make it short. So far, how's it going?
So far, it's going really well, but I have good help.
There is quite a bit of help.
Yes, there is.
I got here, the race started at 9. I got here at 7:30, and it seemed late to be here at 7:30.
Oh, yeah. I mean, why not start the race a little later and sleep in and have a nice breakfast and come out and run?
And that was, I think, I saw people coming to check in and get ready. This seemed happier, so they didn't have to get up so early.
Well, sure. I know I am.
And you got here earlier.
Well, yeah, but I didn't roll out of bed till 6 o'clock this morning, and I was right here. So,
And that's probably sleeping in for you.
it was.
Yeah. So we've talked about the race quite a bit on the show. So this is a different format. So this is a 13th year.
Correct.
On the island. This is the first time you've done this split weekend thing.
Yes.
So it's March 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a Saturday, and today is only the 25K.
Correct.
And then in 2 weeks, on the 24th, we have the 50K, 50 mile, and 100 mile.
Correct.
So what are pros and cons of this? I mean, I like it, and I'm not running, but I really like the setup. So what are the pros and cons as a race director for doing it this way?
Well, first of all, the park imposed a limit on me last year and cut the number of runners I was allowed in half. So that's what kind of prompted the decision to split it. And my 25K runners have always represented close to half of all the runners for the Buffalo Run, so it just made sense to put the 25K on its own date. The pros, I have one distance to deal with. It's not quite like herding cats as much. And not only that, but we can start at 9 in the morning, and most of the runners will be done by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and all of my lovely volunteers and I will have everything all packed up, and we'll be off the island by 4:30 this afternoon. So it just makes it for a much easier day as far as race directing goes.
And it seems like logistically it's going to be easier too, because you have one distance, so one group of people crossing a finish line, so you're not differentiating between all these distances, wondering if someone dropped down a distance, moved up a distance. Yep. So, I mean, that end seems a little bit smoother. What about numbers, though? How many numbers did you get show up?
So for this race today, I had 339 signed up. I don't know exactly how many actually showed up, but typically I have about a 10% no-show rate. So probably around 300 runners are out there on the trails right now.
Okay. And how is that from years past? Is that pretty similar to, say, this distance?
Yeah. This is the 7th year, with the exception of last year, 7th year in a row, where I have exceeded 650 runners for this race.
For the whole thing?
For the whole thing. And so my numbers this year, between today and 2 weeks from now, I have about 710 so far. And so it got the numbers back up. It allowed a lot more people that I had to unfortunately turn away last year.
Yeah.
It meant that they could come out this year and didn't have to worry about whether they got in or not.
Well, one of the reasons, like I said, I'm not running the race, but one of the things I like is you could run today, the 25K, and in 2 weeks you could run any of the other distances. Like even if you're running the 100 mile, this would be a great distance to, I guess, taper, if you will, for the next one.
Yeah, and I offered that option and even gave a discount if you signed up for both events at the same time. And so I didn't get as many as I thought I would. I didn't really have any idea how many I would get. I think I got 8 or 10, maybe a dozen people that are running today and running 2 weeks from now.
Gotcha. One thing I noticed, because I've been here most of the morning, is, and I never pretend to know everybody, but I've been around long enough, especially this area, this race. There was a lot of people I've never seen before. And there's people I see, and I'm like, they're familiar. I may not know who they are, but I've seen them at races. This morning was like Twilight Zone for me. I'm like, I don't know anybody. And so if I saw someone, I just hugged them because I'm like, I know you. So is that pretty typical of this one?
For the 25K, it is. I think the 25K is, it seems like it's kind of a gateway drug.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
To trail running, and a gateway drug to maybe an ultra in their future.
I could see.
And so I think the 25K, it not only that, but it's short enough. It's just a hair over a half marathon that I think it ends up drawing a lot of the roadrunner crowd that wants to maybe see what trail running and trail racing is all about.
Well, I saw a lot of singlets this morning, so I know there is.
Yeah.
I took some video. Well, I think you nailed it, though. Like I've always said this, and many times, this was my first ever trail race. the very first year you put it on, and it was absolutely a gateway drug. As much as I hated it when I finished, because I'd never run really before for like running for running, like I'd ran in sports, and I finished, I'm like, yeah, that was neat, but I'm done. And then I was like, you know what? That actually was really cool.
Yeah.
Because, 13 years ago, I had no clue about any of this stuff. Nutrition, I carried around I think Gatorade in a powder form in a Ziploc bag in my hand. I'm like, what's this fancy stuff people have on their bodies?
Yep.
But it's a perfect gateway to trail. And the course itself I love it. It's super runnable. There's a couple sections that'll make you want to walk, and some you will, for sure, depending on your level. But you could get a pretty good time out here.
Yeah, I think you can. It's and I'm always happy to enable people.
You've never had a problem being an enabler.
No, I'm good at that, especially trying to get people out on trails. I'm more than happy to prod them along.
Well, and we've had you on the show before as a podcast, but I've said this before. What you have done for trail running in our area, you were kind of like the first game in town.
Well, not quite the first, but
I think you kind of were. I mean, there was 50-mile races.
Yeah, there was Squaw Peak, there was Wasatch, and that was about it.
Yeah,
really.
50-mile and 100-mile, but no one's just. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. Nowadays is different, but back then it wasn't like people were. I never heard of Squaw Peak. I never heard of Wasatch, and they were distances that I didn't even fathom. That would have been like fake news to me. But just not only the putting the race on, but it's just kind of like you said, it's that distance where if you're a half marathon runner, and that's been a huge distance forever in road especially, this is in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Plus, you're in a unique location on the Antelope Island, which is absolutely amazing. So I think for what you've done, the organization, you kind of, being 13 years, you still have that old school feel to a race. Not all necessarily.
That'll never change.
And that's why people come back, though. It's like, before today, you bring homebrew every year, right?
Yep,
And so,
always.
So what's on your menu today?
So I made up a batch of a Scotch ale that comes in at about 8% ABV.
Yep.
And then I made up a Pilsner that I've done before. The Scotch ale is new. I hadn't done that before, and it turned out quite nice, I think. And then the Pilsner is my go-to recipe for that. And it comes in, I think, around 5%.
Gotcha.
Something like that. So nice beers. I don't do weird things with my beers like some home brewers do. I just let's go old school here and
matches the race.
Yeah.
Well, and you even had people come up to you saying, "Hey, homebrew, I have some." So I mean, you get people every year that trade, right?
Oh yeah, I always go home from the Buffalo Run with a bunch of beers, and I have no clue what they are, but people gave them to me, and yeah, I'll pop them and try them.
Well, because they're just in a bottle, so you don't know what's inside.
Exactly.
It could be bleach. It could be ginger ale. It could be
and I've had some really good ones, and I've had some that was like, okay, that's going down the drain.
That's a new guy.
He's not done this very long.
But I mean,
it's always fun, and I love trying other people's brews, and it's part of the event now, and I enjoy it.
Well, I think that kind of goes back to what we were saying is kind of that old school feel. It is that way. I mean, people come here. I mean, there's a bunch of people here right now just hanging out. Mm-hmm. Like you might have a runner here or a friend here, but people come to this race to hang out, to see other people. For our area, this is really the first race of the year. I mean, you can go to different southern Utah and Idaho's and these other places, but this in our area is kind of like season's beginning. This is it. And so it's a nice hangout, and you've got a great start-finish.
Yeah. You can't ask for a better venue.
You really can't, because you're right. I mean, the views I'm sitting here right now just checking out the views. It's a beautiful day. It's a little bit, I'm in the shade, so it's a little chillier, but it's a beautiful day to run and to spectate. I mean, really not a cloud in the sky. The wind's down. We haven't had any buffalo charge us yet, which is a plus.
Yeah, we had a little bachelor herd hanging out yesterday around here.
Yeah, just checking it out.
Yeah,
new guys.
Yeah, new guys.
New guys, the buffalo.
Not sure if Earl was in there, but yeah, they were hanging out.
And we'll bring that up because there's a lot of listeners that don't know. So when was that? Like 4 years ago? 5 years ago?
5 years ago, something like that.
And I was here, so I'm very vivid. We had the 100 miles started on a Friday. It starts at noon. And they're getting ready to go, and there's some buffalo kind of hanging out near the start area by the fence. And there was a individual who was trying to get a picture of one from our vantage point, and kind of, I won't say tossing. It looked like they were tossing rocks at it to get a turnaround. Well, it did, and it actually charged the gentleman and rammed him into a chain link fence, pinned him and dropped him, and stood over him for a minute. I mean, we were right here, and the guy was fine, right? But we named this guy Earl, and it's like, don't mess with Earl, right? And you have a beautiful picture of that, by the way.
Yeah, Wayne from Boise got that picture. He happened to be in the right place at the right time, and that picture went around the world.
Yeah, it
and
did.
I've gotten so much mileage off of that picture.
But I mean, it's a good reminder though here, because this is a great place. People come and train here all winter because the trails are just a little bit different. But it's a good reminder that these, even though you're on an island and they're right next to you, these are wild animals.
Absolutely.
So it's not like a petting zoo.
Nope.
And I think even years and years ago, there were some people from, I don't know, another country.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing, they were thinking that, hey, can we pet these?
Yeah.
They were unfamiliar because they weren't from here with the situation. But I mean,
Right.
it's a good reminder that, hey, these are wild animals, and you can take a picture of them, but do
Don't
it at a
get too
distance.
close,
and if their tail
and-
pops up, it doesn't necessarily mean they're pooping.
No. If the tail pops up and nothing's coming out, you best back off.
Yeah, just hide if you can.
Yeah,
There's
well,
nowhere to hide.
There's nowhere to hide out here.
So today, what do you think is going to be a winning time for this 25K?
Be honest, given the trail conditions with the snow and ice and slush and mud and crap out there, I would be surprised to see the top male come in at under 2 hours.
Okay.
Course record's 1:44.
Wow, that's a good time.
So as far as the women, I'm going to say under 2:15 is going to be a solid finishing time for the winter.
Dang.
I think the women's course record is just like 158 or 159.
That's incredible. But I mean, if the course conditions are prime, it is a fast course.
Yeah, it can be very fast.
But like you said, we just had some snow last week and a little bit earlier this week, and there's a section kind of by Elephant Head back in the switchbacks. It doesn't get as much sun, and it kind of holds it, because right now we can look at a trail here and it's like, oh, it looks great. But once you get back to that section, it will slow people down.
Yeah, and I guess they got. The park told me yesterday that they got about a foot of snow out of that last storm.
Holy cow!
So, which is unusual for out here.
Yeah.
So yeah, they got smacked pretty hard with that one.
Nice. So what do you see for the future of the Buffalo Run? Do you see sticking to this switch weekends, combining it again?
I think I'll be sticking to it, just because if I combine it again, then I'm back to my limit of 400 runners, and I'm back to turning away people.
Yeah.
And I don't like to disappoint people and have to say, sorry, it's full. So, I'll probably stick with this. I had originally thought about doing them a week apart, but I think I may stick with 2 weeks apart, just because it gives me a little bit of a break in between, rather than out here 2 weekends in a row working like a dog.
Well, not only that, but your volunteers.
Exactly.
I mean, you look at across the board races, it's getting increasingly more difficult to find volunteers because there's so many races, and volunteers run.
Right.
They have a life. Most people don't understand. And again, it's the volunteer. So they're here on their own accord.
Right.
But you have a volunteer coordinator, which has
do.
been a big change the last few years for you, which has taken a burden off your shoulders.
Done this. This is her 11th year doing that for me.
I didn't realize it was that far.
She does. She's developed a nice core group of volunteers for this race and my fall race that come back and help her out every year, and she does a great job. Well, it's one less worry I have to worry.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and it's Britta, and she's having a baby in 2 weeks.
Right.
So she's here today, and looks like she could probably run the race. I mean, that's how she looks, but doing her thing, and so 2 weeks she's actually passed the torch a little bit, because obviously it'd be hard to volunteer from a hospital bed.
Or with a brand new baby.
Yeah, that makes it difficult. Little papoose hanging from the front,
Exactly.
like 1 day old. But yeah, I mean, your races always run just perfect, realistically, from your check-in to your aid stations, your finish line. I never hear complaints about this race. In fact, it's pretty much the polar opposite. You get people coming from other states every year. It's like Chris Lundberg from Jackson area. He's here pretty much every year.
Oh, every year. Every year he's here.
And it's that thing. It's just, like you mentioned, you have this core group of volunteers that come back. You have runners that come back, and then it just kind of expands over that with, hey, I'm bringing my friend this following year.
Yeah. I took a little poll this year when people registered and said, hey, how did you hear about the race? And I gave a bunch of options. And by far the largest number were people that have come out and run it before. But the second largest were people that were coming out because a friend had told them about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or they had a friend that had never run it and they wanted to come hang out with their friend. So those two options were the next highest numbers in terms of that little poll I took.
Yeah.
I think, one of them was got quite a few votes. It was a sign from above. That was an option to pick.
Well, it would be on and if you don't know Jim, that's just kind of how he plays the game, right? You got to always make things fun.
Oh, absolutely.
And
take it serious.
And that's, even in the race briefing, like we talked you into finally opening a beer before like 8:30.
Hey, PBR, Breakfast of Champions.
And I saw the respect level from your runners instantly rise. Like, oh, wait, this is legit now.
I'm not so sure about that. But
he's giving us race directions with a beer in his hand at 8:45 a.m. This has got to be the race I need to run.
Or maybe I shouldn't have come out here.
But I think the great thing, so I videoed the start of the race, and I think one of the things I took away from it is you've got that fast crowd, right? That come out here to early season, see where they're at, post a PR, whatever. But just as the crowd thinned even near the tail end, it's all ages, all abilities. There's people out here that don't look like they're probably going to run a step. They've got hiking poles. They're ready for a day. Yeah. And that's what I like about it. It's for anybody. It's not, you don't have to be a runner. You don't have to be fast. This is just for anybody who wants to come out, enjoy the island, and have a great time.
And push themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And, anybody can come out here and hike 15 miles.
Yeah.
Anytime you want. But, even if you're just coming out to hike and you have no intentions of being anywhere near the front of the pack, being in a race kind of helps you push and see what you can do, even though you may not be fast.
Yep, that's true. And then when you finish, you get a cool coffee mug.
Oh yeah,
that they can take home and sip their job out of, and those are lined up on the table just waiting for people to come across. Mm-hmm. One of the changes to this race, which is really part of your race, and your wife just came over, Karen. She does the buffalo stew every year. Mm-hmm. So that's not at the 25K. You actually have a caterer coming out this year.
I do. I have a outfit called Peddlers Catering coming out, and they're going to just bring out a selection of soups and breads and such. And what's nice about them is that the proceeds from today that I pay them, they are using to, I guess, they have a mountain biking
shop /
guided tour thing in Nepal.
Yep.
And so the proceeds from today will help to fund that, and they hire locals in Nepal, teach them mountain biking skills, and then they will teach them to guide. My understanding is they'll teach them to guide tourists on mountain bikes. So I thought that was pretty cool. I tried to get a couple of food trucks, but nobody ever responded to my calls. It was like, okay, well, I guess I'll get somebody else then. So I did.
And that's what's neat is we actually have those guys. They're going to do our Ogden Trail Running Festival, our Saturday. They're coming out, and I think I'll meet with them this week, but I think we're going to do some, since it's Cinco de Mayo weekend, we're going to kind of spin that and maybe do some street tacos and some fun stuff there. But for the same reason, it's local and it's for a good cause. So why not do it that way? So
absolutely.
But soup at a finish of a race like this is perfect.
Kind of a cool day, and soup's perfect. And my lovely wife told me that there was no way in hell she was going to cook buffalo stew twice.
Well, and I saw her today, and I said, Karen, how do you feel? Like, you don't have to do anything today. And she's like, feels kind of weird. I almost didn't come out here. But, it's just good for her to enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. She gets to hang out and chat with our friends and enjoy the day.
And the other thing is when people finish the race, one of my all-time favorite things of any race is just hanging out at the finish line.
Oh, absolutely.
And, again, this is the perfect place. There's already families here with chairs set up and young kids and dogs. And people are it's a great hangout. It's a Saturday morning. It's beautiful. it's perfect. It
Yeah.
really is. And it's a great place to cheer people. And that's what I love is people finish and they sit and cheer because you get a good view when people come through the finish line.
Yep.
And people just sit here and cheer people coming through. And for those running, it's a huge boost. And for people on the sideline, it's just a fun day.
Yeah.
Because you know what these people have gone through no matter if they're first or last. It's like you all did the same mileage on the same course and you don't know their stories. And that's part like why we're here is to maybe pluck a few of those people over here and get to their stories. But me and Joel talk about all the time, we can't stress enough people. If you haven't done this race, you have to do it once. And if you've done it before, you know why you have to come back. It never disappoints. It's the same time every year. You know what you're going to get. Great course. Race directing's on point. Volunteers, and we'll stress that all the time. Thank them for being out here.
Absolutely.
Because they're giving up their time to support runners. So great race. You got a few sponsors. You got Alta Running.
Yep.
They're out here.
They're our main sponsor. They pony up the prize money and a bunch of shoes. And
So what's the prize money? We haven't even touched on that.
Oh, for $25K, the winners, it's not much. It's $100 for the top male and top female. So, it's good for dinner out with your spouse.
Some sushi.
Yeah, maybe some sushi. Or make a run to Idaho and buy some decent beer.
And then you've got Intermountain. They're here. Intermountain Sports Medicine.
Intermountain Sports Medicine always brings out a crew to take care of those hangnails that runners get, and that they whine about occasionally. And
Well, and that's the thing is on this course, I have been at the finish line. You've seen people come across that have had some pretty nasty spills too.
Yep, that can happen, and so it's good to have them out here to take care of those and just be that medical backup in case we need it.
Yeah, and they're always here with bells on, so it's always nice. But well, I know you got work to do. You got runners going to be coming through here, and maybe it's an hour 15 into the race, so probably not too much longer.
Yeah, not too much longer. I better get busy.
Yeah, so we'll let you go. But thanks for letting us come out and set up. Thanks for what you're doing, not just for the people here, but just even though you won't pat yourself on the back, we do a good job of that for people. What you've done for the community, because really, I don't know if I'd have been a trail runner if it wasn't for this race, and I know a very big handful of people that don't know if they would be trail runners without this race either. So you may not, in your opinion, been the first game in town, but you were the first one that people felt like, hey, let's do this race, and it's been super cool.
I enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it.
Well, and you've got a serious reputation around here too. Well, everybody knows you because you know them, right? When they say, "Hey, Jim," you're like, "Yep, I remember your name."
Yeah, right.
You're like, "Hey, you." Well, thanks for joining us.
Really good at saying, "What's your name again?"
Well, and I think it's fair because they have to remember you, and you have to remember thousands of people,
right?
Because through the years they've come through. But you've made some great friendships.
Oh, I have
through this race.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why most of us do this anyway, is to see the familiar faces and share those war stories. And again, this was always really the first race. So this was the first race of the year where you got to say, "Hey, what you been up to?" I haven't seen you since Wasatch.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. A lot of times you don't see these people through the winter.
And so you really look forward. That's why I came at 7:30. I'm like, okay, who am I going to see today?
Yeah.
And I was a little disappointed. I didn't see as many people as I knew.
2 weeks.
But we had a lot of people come up I met for the first time, and there were some familiar faces. So it's a great time.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll let you get to work. And I'll see who I can pluck over here when they cross the finish line.
Find your next victim.
That's right. So, all right. Thanks, Jim, and good luck the rest of the day.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Trail Manners podcast. We'd like to thank Jim Skaggs once again for taking the time to join us right after he sent the runners off on their 25K. And we also want to encourage everybody to check out his next race here coming up on March 24th, the Buffalo Run 50K, 50-mile, and 100-mile race. If you're running, good luck. If you haven't registered, you may still have time. If not, come out to the island, say hello. We also want to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Trail Manners, or swing by the website at trailmanners.com. Hopefully we get our new hats on there soon, but we do have a few other pieces of swag before we launch some new stuff. Or you can hit us up on the contact page. Let us know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or if you would like to be on the show. Until next time, this is Eric Manning and Joel Hatch reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.